Joining us for episode 120 of the Oblivion Bar Podcast is the 5-time Eisner-winning writer who spent 18 years at Marvel, writing iconic storylines like Ultimate Spider-Man, Secret Invasion, 6 years on Daredevil, the new Avengers, infamous Iron Man, House of M, Alias, the all-new X-Men, and that's just a small fraction of his work at the House of Ideas. He also spent some time over at DC Comics writing Action Comics, Superman, and the Legion of Superheroes. And what most modern comic readers probably know him for is his Jinxworld creator-owned titles like Powers, Jinx, Scarlet, and the Murder Inc. titles. It is my honor to welcome Brian Michael Bendis onto the Oblivion Bar Podcast.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, so great to have you here, Brian. Man, it's just awesome to just be here in front of you. And you know, I can honestly attribute a lot of my early comic reading and even modern comic reading to a lot of your work, not just at Marvel, but, you know, a lot of Powers, a lot of it I've just kind of grew up loving.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I am personally having a very strange week. I just got back from California at the Spider-Verse premiere.
Oh, man.
All of those words are strange to say out loud. The comic creators spend a lot of time alone in a room staring at the wall. So then when they let us out to talk to other humans, it's always surreal. And when it's something as celebratory as Spider-Verse turned out to be, it's beyond. I'm still processing is basically what I'm saying.
Sure. Now, I can't even imagine, to be honest. And we're actually going to get into that LA premiere and just kind of your thoughts on where Miles is in present day, because, man, I just can't imagine watching your little boy grow up the way he has. It's probably surreal.
Very. That's the word. There's no other word. Good surreal, but really surreal.
Sure. Well, I actually wanted to start off the conversation talking about your Substack with Taki Soma, Jinxworld, right? So yeah. I feel that you and Taki have run your newsletter kind of the way that I've wanted almost all comic creators to, you know, basically which would to say that you offer so much yourself with lengthy blog posts and updating everybody with what's going on with your writing, to masterclass sessions, which generally feature superstar creators like David Mack, Michael Avon Omi, David F. Walker, and the list goes on. And I just love that you give creatives a peek behind the curtain and offer up so much of your expertise on how you made it as a successful storyteller.
Oh, I appreciate that. I've been actually teaching at Portland State University. I've been teaching comics writing with David Walker and Taki Soma for, I just found out, 15 years now, which is crazy to think that it kind of crept up on us. And when we started, the part of the excitement was that teaching college level courses in comics was something I was desperate for when I was a college student, and I kind of had to figure it out myself growing up. So when I was offered the chance to actually share what you know, it was so exciting to me. And then when Substack came to us last year and said, "Hey, we have this space, you can do whatever you want with it," it offered us this opportunity to bring the class outside of the university and into, whoever wants it. And it ended up being one of my favorite spaces we've had. And, social media can be such a mix of emotions that you kind of you can't give it a lot of weight, but this space has kind of made me feel like the old message board days of like when years ago, we had a message board that was thriving. It was part of, what was making Ultimate Spider-Man click and everything. And to have that space back is quite lovely. So we have 3 things we're doing on Substack. Number 1, we do the class, which is hosted by myself and Taki Soma. And the reason we have 2 teachers, both in this class and in our university, is because an enormous part of the class is teaching people how important collaboration is. And the only way to really teach that is to show it. And also there's no one point of view on any of this. There's many points of view, and you'll figure out which ones apply to you during which, parts of your life that you want them to apply to. So having, more of a debate on stage versus here's how to write like me, which is not like something I'd ever want to do. So we have the class, and also there was a couple of projects I was dying to do. One which was Fortune and Glory the Musical, which is an autobiographical comic. This one I did years ago before I was at Marvel, about my weird times in Hollywood. and you can read that at Dark Horse. But this new one that's coming out every other week is about my short time being the writer of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, the infamous Broadway musical, of which I had no business being anywhere near, but I couldn't help myself because the offer was too interesting. And but it's really a lousy excuse for me to like take you on an autobiographical journey of what comics mean to me and what we've learned and what I've seen and all the interactions that we've had. So that was a big project I was dying to do. I'm so grateful to Substack for getting us to make that project. And the other one was kind of a sequel to, I did a textbook a few years ago called Words for Pictures for Random House. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to do another one that wasn't just here's more ideas, but something else. And this one was about just creation, about how to create things. And it's messy and it's filled with failure. And isn't that awesome? And let's talk about it. And it's the kind of stuff that most creators shy away from because it does. It's like you're showing your soft belly and you're, oh, look at all the failure that happened. And, but taking people through an anecdotal journey of, here's how we made Jessica Jones, and here's how we made Miles Morales, and here's how Secret Invasion came together. Has been delightful as well. So those are the three things you get off a Substack on top of whatever other nonsense we have. But that's the benefit of Substack compared to like what you said with Twitter and social media in general, where it can get kind of messy, it can get bogged down by trolls or whoever, whatever. That's social media. Yeah, I don't even care about the trolls so much. I mean, that's just always a thing. It's just like if you want to have a deeper conversation than 100 characters will allow, and a lot of the subjects that we're dealing with, even the character arcs of our favorite comic book characters, need more than 50 chosen words, and so it allows us to for a deeper dive for people who want it.
Sure. So question about the masterclass sessions, and I've watched a couple of them myself. They're awesome. I was curious, are you just like kind of regurgitating from the vault of like the do's and don'ts on how to make comics, or do you put together like a syllabus or a schedule for these sessions that you have with everyone on your Substack?
Both. We do have a syllabus. If you've subscribed, you've gotten the syllabus, and and it lets us know what's coming, and also let us know, have a conversation with the students about what they wanted out of the class, and so it is. Here's our subject. Like tonight, after we're done, Taki and I are hosting a class on story structure, of which both Taki and I have a list of things we're hoping to get to. And then we are very aware that we will derail this conversation 5 minutes in with other subjects and things that have happened, because so many of these subjects, particularly with writing, you say, oh, today we're talking about character. Well, that's really about everything. That's the spoiler. That's everything. So a lot of these subjects are multi-layered and take us on journeys, and we're really here for the students. So sometimes the conversations can take us into areas, and we love to share what we know. Or what we know so far. That's what I like to say. Because when I was younger, I think I thought I assumed that everybody know. I don't know everything. This is just what I've known so far. But as I get older, and now I'm like a father, I have like a lot of kids, and like they look at me like, you think I have the answers? Oh shit! I'm the dad. I'm supposed to like Alex P. Keaton this or something. I'm supposed to like know stuff. So I kind of let people know, all right, this is what I've learned so far. And come to me in a couple of weeks, see if I have a different answer.
I know a lot of things. I don't know all the things. We're always learning. We're always trying to figure out new ways to go about stuff in our lives. Yeah,
but it's funny. When I was younger, I think I walked around like I knew everything, and I'm like, oh no, I thought you understood. I'm an idiot. This is just what I know so far.
That's like one of the greatest tools as you get older is perspective, right? Like you eventually figure out that you don't know everything, and you won't. You'll never know everything, and that's okay. It's just that's just kind of the journey of it all.
I spend a lot of my time. Like I'm 55 years old, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the exact age that Bruce Wayne is in The Dark Knight Returns. And I remember reading Dark Knight Returns in high school and thinking, 55, no adult. That was the sci-fi break in my head. That like no 55-year-old could lift their leg, let alone put on the costume. And now I know at this age is probably the only age where any of my friends are crazy enough to put on a Batman costume and run around and do stuff. So I have a completely different perspective on a lot of this.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy that. And it's a nice reminder of like, to my children, I'm the crypt keeper. Just remember that, because that's what you thought 55 was that's, even though it doesn't feel that way.
It's a soft reminder.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I wanted to talk about some of your recent work here, which, as we mentioned in the introduction, has mostly been a lot of creator-owned work. Your imprint, Jinxworld, has been everywhere, Marvel, DC, and now Dark Horse. And recently, we've gotten the next chapter in the Murder Inc. saga with Jaeger Rose and the co-creator artist Michael Oeming, that has expanded on the new character that we met initially in the United States versus Murder Inc. And then there's also The Ones with Jacob Edgar, who pits together a group of quote unquote chosen ones to take on the Antichrist, which just so happens, especially at the beginning of the story, to be a baby. And they have to kind of work their way. So my question for you, and actually I want to start with Murder Inc., is you clearly have a lot of passion for this world, and specifically the characters of Valentine Gallo and Jaeger Rose. It kind of feels like you and Oeming could write this series forever. Do you both feel that same way?
Yes, absolutely. It was an idea that percolated for a long time. For those who don't know, the Murder Inc. is a kind of an alt history universe. It's our world, but let's say that in the late 50s and early 60s, the mob, instead of kind of losing its hold that it had on certain parts of our culture and politics, dug deeper. We go with the premise of, oh my God, they killed Kennedy. And instead of the families scattering, which they did, what if they said, and we know from history that there was a conversation of, yeah, tell them it was us. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? They can't fight us and Vietnam at the same time. And we believe we were right. And I tell them to go fuck themselves. And there was a conversation that happened. And when you hear that historical fact, you're like, oh my God, what would have happened if that happened? And from that little acorn blossomed a world where the five families not only didn't let go, but they thrived into a point of authority where the five families are equal in stature to any country government in our world, and how that has changed all of society. And so we hear in the modern day, living in that world where the five families are a thing and people know about it, and they own New York and they own LA and they own Vegas, and there are other parts of the United States they don't. And how do families that are built on kind of being anti-authority, which are now the authority, how does that work? And it has allowed us to do everything we've wanted to do about historical crime fiction and about the world we live in today. And my favorite theme of the last 10 years is how gangsters keep rebranding themselves. We don't hear gangster anymore, but oh Lord, we see a lot of gangster activity all day long. So I like to project that a lot into the story. So we get to see a lot of things about our world without pointing fingers at anybody. And that's a fun way to tell a story. So yeah, we love it. And literally just before the writer's strike, we were put into development as a TV show. And I was so excited because it's one of if the pieces came together, the show could go for years and years and years. There's so much story and so many places to have fun with it. And hopefully when we come back, we'll be able to get right back to it. So sure. Yeah, but meanwhile, we have the books. We have, we're in the middle of our third volume right now. Dark Horse has published all of them under the banner Murder Inc. It used to be called United States of Murder Inc. That title is filled with marketing negatives. So we pivoted towards just Murder Inc. It's about this thing. And also the world of our story got much more international in this one. For those who read the first issue of the new volume, we're going to the Vatican. And so we're heading outside the United States to see how what's happened in the United States has affected the rest of the world and religions and such. So,
sure. And it kind of feels like, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, it feels like we're getting a little bit of a narrative switch here with Jagger finally kind of taking we get a lot of her in United States versus Murder Inc. And now that we have both her and Valentine together. I feel like I maybe just because I just recently read United States versus Murder Inc. I feel like we're starting to see more of her. Is that purposeful?
It's like a slow build switch. Like Valentine was our in, and then and I don't want to spoil the Valentine's story was one of my favorite things me and Mike have ever done. But like there's reveals about Valentine and his relationship to all of this, which allows us a unique perspective. And then he's dealing with that fallout while Jagger is kind of ascendant, right? So it's really about the two of them. It's really about their friendship and partnership. And it's building right in front of our eyes, right in front of them. And they are two characters that find themselves constantly in situations they did not see coming. And if not for the other one, they may have failed, but together they can seem to be able to handle anything. And that's just a lot of fun to write. So you look at it like, like X-Files, sometimes it's about Mulder and sometimes it's about Scully. So it's like whoever's story and perspective is most important at the time. But I think you're going to see a little bit more bouncing back and forth between the two of them. But yeah, Jagger is on a very unique path.
I really loved her part of the story for sure. Not that I didn't love Valentine's, but I think United States versus Murder Inc. I just really loved seeing her kind of come up and excited to see what those two do together.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy. It's one of those books like we can only let people read it to discover it. Like the things we like about it are in the details of the piece and in Taki Soma's palette choices and everything that's going on visually. So I get so excited when people read it because I know what they're experiencing, and what Mike and Taki did is really something special. And then the ones, which is a brand new concept that I've been cooking for years. I literally from the first Matrix, I find the concept of the chosen one hilarious. I just do. It's one of those ideas that you always hear, he's the one, and then you think about it for a second. Wait, no, isn't Trinity the one? Because it looks like Trinity was like well, if they're the one and they're the one and they're the one, then who's the one? And I've been playing with this forever. And the internet put me and Jacob Edgar together, and he was the perfect partner for this. So, and we're in the middle of our second volume right now, which also will be introducing the other ones, and we're excited about that as well. So it's a delight. It lets me blow off so much genre steam, and I have so much fun with it. And I will say a good choice on that is it's not ever about religion. It's only about story mythology. So it's about literally that idea that every story has the one or the chosen one or the golden child, or, or the magical baby. And I can't get enough of them.
So I also heard that it's like Ghostbusters and Adam Project kind of meet the Goonies. Obviously, there's a lot of 1980s action. I kind of see that as well. But what's the influence there for you?
When I was growing up, both Goonies and Ghostbusters not only were the funniest movies I'd seen, but they were the best version of that genre that I'd seen. And I think that's the lesson of Ghostbusters and one that I think Marvel applies to every genre they hit on the MCU. We're all Ghostbusters babies, but the lesson is the best special effects I'd ever seen were in Ghostbusters, that first Ghostbusters, right? And so the idea is like, this will be the best action comic I write about this nonsense idea. So that's the plan. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I just recently read the ones, and it is really cool how you bring them all together and you kind of piece each character in that first issue where, each one comes from a different walk of life. And really the only connecting piece is the gentleman who's getting them together, who I'm spacing his name right now.
Wilson.
But he's Wilson. Thank you. Yes. Wilson is the one getting everyone together. And when he first gets them all together, and sorry, just slight spoilers for the ones, everyone.
First issue spoilers. It's been out for a while.
Yeah. He puts it all together and they're like, what? Like, this is, you want us to do this? And then also he tells people about the Antichrist and how currently it is a baby. And then eventually we have a slight time jump. So yeah, I love it.
Thank you. The appeal there for me was to come at these characters as non-cliche as possible. We meet them all in the place you least expect to meet a character like this. Like we meet the Uber, the most super powered character in an office. Like no one's where you expect to see them, and just I think that represents none of them are where they expected to be, and so here we are.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to kind of pick your brain on Jinxworld really quick as well, because obviously, like we said, it's been around for a very long time. It's been at Marvel, it's been at DC, and now it's at Dark Horse. And I would love to get kind of your recommendation in terms of if someone wants to get into Jinxworld and wants to read all the different, imprints, or the different titles within that imprint. How would you recommend someone to go about that? Is there a particular reading order, or is there?
No,
what would you?
They're all different projects. They're all different collaborations. I think that makes it much easier to dive in. Like you before the podcast were so loving about me and Alex's work on Daredevil. Well, good news. Me and Alex have a creator-owned book called Scarlet that is that artistically blows Daredevil away. It's the best thing Alex has ever done. And anyone that ever says, "Hey, I love Daredevil," I'm like, check out Scarlet. I know you'll love it. Like even if you can't stand every word I write, you will. It is a beautiful book. And right now, Alex and I are embarking on a brand new creator-owned crime project that'll be out later in the year from Dark Horse, and that's very exciting as well. So, and for people, they hear about like, how did you get to Marvel? Well, Powers was part of it. Read Powers, and if you like Jessica Jones, you'll like Powers. If you like Miles Morales, you'll love Takeo and the Ones. And so there, it's more about that than it is. And I do get excited on a week like this week when I'm getting so much affection about like not only Miles, but his family, which for people who create stuff for a living, just as much work went into Rio Morales as went into Miles Morales. But I will always get, we'll always get more credit for the lead character, but it's really the whole group of them and the building of the world around Miles that we're so proud of. And that's when I can point to, well, then please take a look at the other things that we're building, because just as much care and passion went into that stuff. So it's fun. I remember like coming into comics and, starting with superheroes and then discovering certain creators. And then those creators would point their fingers at other books they were reading or other books they were doing. I followed Frank Miller from Daredevil to Ronin, which for me was an enormous leap of faith beyond my, my comfort zone as a young reader. And so I know that experience. And when I get to experience it as a creator with other people, it's the best. So, and I in my multi-tiered privileged life that I'm living at the moment, I have all these wonderful Marvel and DC books out on the shelves. They're there. Miles and Riri are selling just as good as when they first came out. Thank you. God bless. And that beautiful book with Alex. And so
for everyone listening right now, I just held up Infamous Iron Man and Ultimate Spider-Man. That's what we were talking about there.
I appreciate that. And but I felt this years ago. I felt like this need to step on the gas and make more Marvel comics. And now I have enough of them out there where I can just enjoy having them out there and try new things. And I have the opportunity to try to scare your path, which is try new things. Like I could go back and write Spider-Man and have a blast with my pal Mark Bagley or something. And but creating new stuff from scratch is so much more where my passion is right now, that I'm so happy that those other books are out there so I can enjoy that and enjoy what I want to do right now, which is The Ones and Murder Inc. and these other cool things.
Yeah, I mean, you've done so much.
Operations. Another one that I did with Stephen Byrne that I was just writing last night, that this whole new sci-fi world that we built that I just love dearly.
Yeah. Well, again, like you were just saying, you've done so much at the big two. At this point, why not just go into your own universes and play around in those? And like you said, you're just at a different point in your career now where creating new things is far more, I don't want to speak for you here, but it sounds like it's a little bit more appetizing right now that you're so accomplished in the other areas. Yeah.
And again, I could change I'm not making a big deal about, some people leave Marvel and DC and they're like, I'll never look there again. Never. My days are done. It's not how my heart feels. It's just at the moment, what a privilege it is that I can make new comics. The other one that is taking up an enormous amount of my time is this book series I'm doing with Andre Lima called Phenomena at Abrams Publishing, which is a whole book series that we're doing. And it takes up an enormous amount of my brain space, creating a world from scratch for him to draw his ass off on. So these things, yeah, it's the thing I'm not sure I can do versus the thing I pretty much know I can do. So it's exciting to try the things you don't know you can do. All of my heroes did it, and I'm just trying to live by that philosophy.
Yeah, well, and I want to kind of speak on what you were saying a moment ago about Frank Miller and how you kind of just followed him from each project. And I feel like in a similar way, and I'm not trying to butter you up too much here, but I did the same thing as a kid. I loved Ultimate Spider-Man, so I followed you to the new Avengers, and then I followed you to Daredevil, and then I followed you to Infamous Iron Man and all the events that you did. And I just kept going and going, and it just kind of curated a long list of titles that I'm such a fan of from you. And you know, and of course, when you moved to DC, and I was a constant reader of Action Comics and Superman, and now, of course, with a lot of your creator own, like I totally get the process, and I'm just happy to be along with the journey with you as a creator.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I lucked out when I first hit at Marvel and things were going very well, and I had my message board and social media, and that people were letting me know that they were following me the way I used to follow Walt Simonson, right? And I know that experience, and then I found out the difference between my experience and, let's say, one of my other heroes, Bill Sienkiewicz, who told me, hey, you know, when I was on New Mutants, we get like 3 letters. Like I didn't know anyone liked it. I'm taking the huge artistic swings, and I'm like, boy, and meanwhile, me and like David Mack are home in our childhood homes, having our minds blown and changing us on a cellular level. Like we're so changed, and he didn't know it. But meanwhile, people tell us immediately. People hop online and tell us. So we have like instant gratification or feedback, whereas my heroes did not have that. They just had a leap of faith. So I find myself grateful and empowered that I now not only do I know the feeling, but I get like people rooting me on as we go, and that's amazing. And I know that's a privilege. Well,
we got to get to your boy. We got to talk about, you know, your son is having such a big year, week, whatever. Especially with, you know,
London.
Again,
you know my son, London.
I haven't met London yet, but I have met Miles.
He had a good week too. He got to go to a Spider-Man premiere, and
nice. Yeah, I saw the pictures online.
He had a good time. Yeah.
Well, again, with Across the Spider-Verse coming out this last week, and it's already been such a giant success commercially and critically. As some may know, of course, you are the co-creator along with one of the all-time greats, Sarah Pichelli.
Yes.
And I think I actually saw, like you just said, I said it here in my notes here, but I saw in Jinxworld that you were at the world premiere in LA, which is incredible. I think it's worth noting, again, as a follower, on Twitter, it's very heartwarming to see you retweet basically every single thing to do with Miles or the film.
It's not everything. I have to pick carefully because I could just be retweeting awesome shit all day.
Sure.
Just literally alone, just the hashtag Miles Morales birthday cakes. I could just hit that that is the most delightful thing in the world. In this instance, what I'm excited to retweet, and I do as often as I can, is that as Lord and Miller have put together a crew of almost 1,000 artists and craftsmen and creators and technicians that put this together, and I some of them I know very well. Like some of them are like Sanford Green and Chris Anka, who I've worked with. Like Sanford and I were doing a Justice League annual while he was working on the Spider-Verse movie, and my brain couldn't fully process that. And Chris Anka and I did X-Men together, and now we share credits in this Spider-Man movie, which delights me on every level. And I said Bill Sienkiewicz later. They keep hiring Bill Sienkiewicz to do the movie posters. It's amazing. If that was all that Miles brought me was a Bill Sienkiewicz poster, that would be enough. I would be so filled in my heart. What a success that would be. But instead I have literally almost every great artist that works in cinema right now had contributed something to that film. And I just want to celebrate them. Some of them I've known, some of them I'll never meet. Some of them but we all share this connection. And I'm now on year 6 or 7 of being baffled why Miles brings out the best in so many creative people. I don't have, not only in the film, but the video game is one of the best video games, and that whole crew, like everyone brings a lot of truth to the character and a lot of themselves. And it blows my mind. And I just want to celebrate it as much as I can without like overwhelming everybody as well, because I could easily do that. And and also, I'm personally blown away. I'm personally feeling this connection, this nonverbal connection between artists, and I just want to share it with everybody. Yeah,
Well,
I never in a million. There's things that I wanted, like when you're like dreaming about creating things and them landing and someone giving a shit, and that like there's things that you like I wanted, and all of this is so far past my dreamiest of dreams that I don't know what to do other than just ride it, just like enjoy it and celebrate the artistry of it. And I did. You probably saw I said this on Instagram. We were at the premiere. I was with all my kids, and that's amazing too. That all my kids are now old enough to really appreciate what was going on around them. And I turned to my oldest daughter, who's in film school, and I said, "We're in a room with 1,000 of the greatest artists that are working in cinema today. And that's not my opinion, right? We are literally in a room with the greatest artists. And what an amazing experience that is. And that happened, honestly, also when we were at the Wakanda premiere. I got to go to that as well because of Riri. And, there's Ruth Carter. Like, there's some of the greatest artists that have ever worked in film are there. And like, Jesus Christ, like, it's just that alone is just amazing. So yeah, I try to celebrate it without coming off braggy too, because I as I've told you, I love to share the failure. Like I love to like demystify it so people can enjoy theirs a little bit more. But also I want to like for people who are coming up and want to do this for a living or trying to like figure out like what they want. Yeah. I hope this is all inspiring. And it does seem to be what people take from it. I also love last night, just as I went to bed, Spider Sona started trending again. And that's the people make their own spider personalities. Yeah. And that came out of the first Spider-Verse movie. And I did bring tears to my eyes a couple of times because that is people connecting over an idea beyond, and I could never have thought of it. Never. And it fills my heart. I mean, that's too mushy.
No, not at all. I want that. That's exactly what I wanted from this question was to kind of it's a testament to your creation, to Miles. And I'm curious. I don't really have this as a question, but you've kind of brought this question out of me. What would you feel? And again, we just covered Across the Spider-Verse on the show last week, and we both loved it. Both Aaron and I. What would you say? And this might be a tough question, so I apologize, but I feel like they nailed Miles in the movie, both in the first one and second one. But what would you say is like the core of the character? If you're going to do one thing right with Miles Morales, what do you think that one attribute needs to be with him?
Well, I think they've done a very good job doing the lesson that I've learned over and over and over again, and I speak to it often in class because it seems so. It seems antithetical. It seems like it wouldn't be true. But the more specific and granular you get with detail of character and story and world, the more very specific you get to your truth, the more universal an idea becomes. And it sounds like that wouldn't be true. It sounds like the opposite would be true. But it is. And every time I do it, even from my earliest days working on my crime fiction graphic novels that took place in Cleveland, I would have imposter syndrome doubt about like, who gives a shit about Cleveland? And then one day I got a letter from someone in England that said, I love books about Cleveland. They're my favorite. What a magical land. I go, magical land? You've got Excalibur. Yeah. And so, but to somebody else, somewhere else is magical. Like no matter what. And I was so grateful for growing up in Cleveland and growing up with that second city mentality and then being told, no, that's wrong. Every place is magical to somebody else. And then taking that idea and moving it all the way through all of the stories we've done and then bringing it to Miles and bringing as much truth as I could from my perspective. And then finding out what choices I made correctly and what choices can be built upon by other people. And also Miles, there's something about Miles that as our conversation evolves about comics and media, like he evolves with it and it's quite wonderful. I also, the other takeaway, and I like to share with a lot of people is that, and it's fully understandable that in almost every pop culture, a lot of changes happen out of panic or desperation. like, oh shit, sales are down. Bring in a cute cousin, like there's of which I may have been to Dan DiDio's run at DC, but there's there's something great about Miles was created through a lengthy conversation that didn't need to happen, but we wanted to have. We're like Ultimate Spider-Man's doing very well. No one's asking anything from us, but hey, over lunch, let's talk about what we could do better. What didn't we do right? And the first walk away was this book needs to represent Queens and Brooklyn better than it does. This is and from that conversation became, well, why is it Peter Parker? And like just yes-anding all this conversation. And then it became about Miles. And again, the point of this is we weren't doing it out of panic or out of market necessity but it was created out of the best place, which was desire to do better, desire for inspiration. And I like when I find myself in a conversation with people where they're like, oh, we need something. I'm like, no, stop. That's nothing good has ever come out of I need something. Just let it happen. Let it, so I like to share that because that's the best behind the scenes lesson I learned from Miles. And also another thing is when I was growing up, Steven Spielberg was a huge inspiration, not only because, wow, look at these cool stories, but every interview he would do or every interview I caught, he would go out of his way to point at whose idea that was. Like he would never feel the need to take credit for everything. Like someone go, oh my God, the Boulder and Raiders. Oh yeah, you know whose idea that was? And, oh, you know whose idea that was? And it's also ideas that he's known for. Like when you think of Steven Spielberg, you think that idea. And he has no problem going, oh, no, that was my friend that gave me that idea. And my friend thought of this. And I always admired it so much. And then when I got into position of really collaborating with people, and Sarah and I will always be known as the co-creators of Miles Morales and should be. But on that journey was my friend David Walker, who was having enormous long conversations with me about his childhood and his relationship to media and what life was like for him as a mixed race person growing up in Portland. And then my friend and boss, Joe Quesada, would come to me and like literally call me out of the blue and go, charter schools. And I go, what? And he goes, did you ever see Waiting for Superman? And I go, no, I haven't. I meant to. He goes, charter schools. We've never done one. Is this the right place for that? And then I go do the research. And yeah, he was right. Because I said, I want to fill it with stuff that we haven't seen in a Spider-Man book before. Like if we're going to do this, let's not just do African-American Peter Parker. Like it's everything the same, but let's make choices that allows us to experience the theme, which we know is with great power comes great responsibility. We know that's the theme. It's been handed to us almost like a cheat code, right? So, so let's build a character and a world around him that allows us to express those ideas from a different perspective. I said, hey, wouldn't it be great if he had both of his parents and they loved him? Like that's not something you've ever seen in Marvel Comics. Because I remember like the first day or the first year I was at Marvel, I think it was Joe who said it, and I apologize if I did it. Joe said to me, hey, what's your relationship with your dad? I go, terrible. I have no relationship with my father. He goes, oh, you're going to do great because this is the house that bad fathers built. And he's right. Once you see it, you see every creation from Stan and Company is the father either is the villain, abandoned, or murdered as part of the father or father figure. Harry and Norman Osborn, Matt Murdock, Uncle Ben. It just goes on and on and on to the point where you want to say to Stan, or I wanted to say to Stan when he was alive, hey, what was with your deal with your father? But and by the time I had met him, he was in the late 70s, and I didn't think that was appropriate to ask a man in his late 70s. So your dad sucked, huh? And so, but I did get to dive into that part of myself. But then I said, when it was time to create a new character, wouldn't it be interesting if this character did have both of their parents and had a different relationship to all of this than everybody else? And how would that play out? So my getting back to my original thing is that I love that I'm able to tell people Joe was helpful in creating Miles Morales and also helped create the costume a little bit with Sarah. They were going back and forth on designs, and David Walker's spirit was a big part of, and there were people guiding me along the way. It wasn't just, like people were aware of what we were doing and were coming at me with a well-natured, don't fuck it up. Here's some truth that you can have as you go, and I'm forever grateful for all of it, because like when we see the movie and there's the Visions Academy, and I'm like, that would, thank you, Joe. That was, that I can't thank him enough. Also, a lot of my friends gave me terrible ideas. I just didn't share them, but it's so great that I'm able to tell you which ideas that were great that made it into the stew.
Sure. Well, and I think to kind of go along with all that, I find it very, very amazing. And I think I'm speaking for a lot of longtime comic fans that not only did you recreate the origin and kind of like the basis of Spider-Man once with Ultimate Spider-Man, 100 issues, Peter Parker, like, Peter Parker in modern day, but then you went around and did it again with Miles Morales and just redefined the character once again, or at least a version of the character. And I just find that, that is, if we had no other work from Brian Michael Bendis outside of those two pieces, that right there is legendary all in itself.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I will say that I treat every book as, if this is the only book I'm known for, then let that be it. Right. So I think as a creator, it's a good idea to, even if you have a lot of work under your belt or the opportunity to do more work, that don't lose sight of, like, this may be the one you're known for, good or bad, by the way.
Yeah. Right.
This piece of shit. So I do come at every book with great power comes great responsibility. I am the Spider-Man writer. It's right there on the label. Yep. This is an enormous opportunity. Don't fuck it up. Yeah. And then I also had, which I actually feel like I kind of like, the writers who are writing Spider-Man right now, some of the younger creators, some of which are working on Miles and stuff. I'm almost sad they didn't get to meet Stan. Like, I got not only to meet Stan, but John Romita Sr., and I even got to talk to Steve Ditko for a hot second. And so having Stan, knowing that he approved, like not just guessing, but he looked me in the eye and said, "I love this," was an enormous gift in my life. And and it was so funny because I remember like someone at Wizard Magazine called me up and said, "Hey, we just interviewed Stan about Ultimate Spider-Man. You want to know what he said?" I go, "No." It didn't occur to me that he would even know what it is. Like, no one's thinking about that. And then it was lovely. And then John Romita actually even worked with us a couple of times, which was unbelievable. And so you never in a million years think you're going to actually not only write Spider-Man, but get the thumbs up from the people that really all that matter to me. I mean, honestly, if Stan says, "I hate this," I would have quit. I would have stopped on the dime.
Oh man.
There's no reason to do this, but he saw what it was and heard me loud and clear. It's not broken. I'm not fixing it. Like, that's not the gig. And so I'm so grateful that I had those experiences, and it did carry me through a great deal. Like, Dad's watching.
Yeah. Well, kind of speaking on creations, along with Miles, you've created so many characters and concepts that are now being used in modern Marvel comics, along with the films and along with the films and television. Characters like Riri Williams, Jessica Jones. Elements of your Secret Invasion storyline will most likely be used later this month on the Disney Plus show.
I'll find out next week. I'm going to go to that premiere next.
Oh, man.
That's what I do now.
Yeah, just go to premieres and just wave and put on social media.
Free popcorn.
Yeah. And also, I wouldn't be surprised that if we see a version of the Dark Avengers at some point in the MCU here in the near future. So
nothing would make me happier. I have no outside information other than I am, having been in the creative committee for so many years. For those who don't know, I was part of the MCU's first few waves, like creative committee, and the real origin stories of how this stuff came together. So when I get word, they're doing this from your stuff or they're doing that from your stuff, I feel a great honor that I know how seriously they take these choices, and they don't make them lightly. And when they keep seeing value in the work that we did and the choices that we made, I feel very validated, and I appreciate that. And also, I think the world of Kevin, and so it's lovely that my stuff keeps popping in. Like, I remember I was even in the room where, like, for the first Avengers movie, and they're like, "Oh, Maria Hill's in this." I go, "Really?" I was like
another one of your creations.
That I was in there advocating for my characters, which if you were ever in that room, you would know that was never the place to do that. That is not, it was a writer's room and a producer's room, and no one wanted, if I walked in there one time and said, well, I have an idea, they would like, oh, your idea, your book.
Oh, really? Your character?
Yeah. It would not have met well, but because I kind of knew that, I was always delighted when some of my shit ended up in there. Like, I was more happy about Avengers Tower showing up. I must say I was equally happy about Avengers Tower becoming a thing than I was Jessica Jones having her own show. It was like the equal emotion in my heart of pride. Yeah.
Well, so kind of along with that, let me just ask a question. I was debating on whether I wanted to ask you this question or not, but I've seen the footage of that writer's room from the first Iron Man, where I think I've seen you at the table, but I'm curious,
it's on YouTube. I'm so excited. Yeah.
Who were the other? I'm assuming like Mark Millar was one of them, but who else was in that group?
Well, this was the early days, so nothing was official. They out of that meeting that you see on YouTube became, oh, maybe we should make this official if we're going to be making a bunch of movies, right?
Sure.
And so it was me and Mark were the only creators outside of the group, and it was because of the Ultimate Universe and just our relationship to everything at the time, and I know me and Mark really enjoyed that they trusted us so much. And then it was like our editor, Ralph Macchio, and Joe Quesada and Axel Alonso, our editor, Tom Brevoort, who is a lot of times the magical ingredient on the events working. Like when people celebrate Secret Invasion, that is as much as we worked hard on it, Tom is the one that made it that much more special. So we're all in the room together, and they are literally, here is some previs test on the first Iron Man flying. It's like the earliest days. And here's the script. Here's what we have so far. And again, there wasn't even now Marvel's known for its path, right? And the path was, oh my God, if this movie tanks, the bank owns the company, right?
Right.
This is a leveraged production, right?
Yep. So
if this movie opens and closes at 30, Chase Manhattan or whoever owns the company, right? So it's all hands on deck, everyone with a brain. What do you think of this? Is this anything? And so you get to see us like walk through those meetings and see the designs and give our best opinions. And some of those opinions made it right into the final product, and some of them inspired a better choice that came down the line. It was tremendous. And also it's like, I look back on it now, I was like, I'm just walking in that room like it's not like, and now we know it's the beginning of one of the biggest like pop culture events of our lifetime. Like, so I'm so grateful that it's there, and I'm grateful that someone was filming it, because sometimes I tell these stories and people are like, bullshit. And I'm like, no, I swear to God. And all of those. And so Iron Man was a hit, spoilers. And then it became, there's 3 more movies to do. And then from those 3 movies, it was a never ending series of movies, and then Disney buying. And then I think by Iron Man 2, I was on staff as the only Marvel employee, but I was like freelancer with benefits. I don't know how else to call it, but I was still like running my own company, but I'm at Marvel at a very elevated place for a creator. And I got so much out of it. I can't even like every day was a lesson. It was like math. It was like, getting your like doctorate in something. It was like every day I'm learning stuff. I'm reading. Here's 50 Shane Black drafts of Iron Man 3. Read them and let me know what you think. Oh, I would read Shane Black scripts for free. Like one of my great memories is, hey, come to the conference room. Kenneth Branagh is going to take us through the story of Thor. And then Kenneth Branagh acted out the entire movie.
Did he have the Shakespeare skull in his hand the whole time?
All parts. He did a dead-on impression of Odin, dead-on impression of Loki, dead-on impression. He did them all. and acted out the whole movie with that Shakespearean level of talent that he has.
True man of theater.
And we just sat back for 2 hours going, well, I'm just having the best day of my life. I'm just having a great day.
No notes. Perfection.
No, we did. Like they said, any notes? And me and Joe looked at each other like, I'm not going to speak with my Cleveland accent after what we just heard. I'm not following that. Yeah. So yeah, it was quite wonderful.
I need an Oblivion Bar scoop here. We need to get on the websites. We need the Twitter posts here. When did you find out about Thanos? When was the first time you found out that Thanos was going to be involved?
Early. That was very early on. Thanos was, and Can It Be Pulled Off was around earliest stages of Guardians. Part of the Guardians conversation was just to show you how different the world was. Wow, they're not making any Star Wars movies. Why don't we make a Star Wars movie? That was part of that was said out loud. Like, we have a Star Wars, let's make it. Right. And what I was really intrigued by and always admired about Kevin is that all he had to do was make Iron Man movies. Like, all he had to do was keep Robert Downey Jr. in the suit and ride that as long as you can. And instead they were like, let's make a spy thriller. Let's make a space movie. Let's make and really looked at what the Marvel Universe was capable of and did that. And that inspired a lot of my choices going forward. And it also had me make choices that were bigger than I normally would, because I thought I was making choices that they couldn't make. Like the Marvel Illuminati was a bunch of characters they don't own. Like, I was like, what can I put in the comics that you can't get in the movies like that, like Secret Invasion. Well, the Avengers will never be a movie. That's too big. And now we're 9 deep, so but at the time that was a legitimate observation. Like, okay, they're getting Spider-Man, but when they're not getting Spider-Man and Wolverine on the Avengers. And then lo and behold, here we are 15 years later.
Well, not to mention, try explaining to modern audiences who Jessica Drew is. She's not even related to Peter, guys. Not a big deal, though.
This is, I will say it's happened an enormous amount of times in my time in comics. When I was first at Marvel, I was so proud of myself that I got, I wanted the gig since I was 6 years old, and I got the gig, and I'm having a blast. And I would like, oh, what do you do? I make comic books. I'm just, and always met with, really?
Oh, okay.
You're an adult? You're an adult that does that for a living? Or they make comics? Humans do that? They still make them? What do you mean, like Archie? That it went from that to when I say today I make comics, they go, really? Like there's a whole different cultural vibe about how people perceive graphic novels and comics. It is, I can't believe it. Of all the things that have changed in our lifetime, I can't believe in the 20 years how people have gone from, again, not having comics in the classroom to having them being mandatory reading in the classroom. And now we're fighting to keep them in the classroom. That is an enormous cultural shift. And I can't be happier about it. So
that's when your medium has like full on metas, when you have a certain group of people trying to ban it from schools. So you're like, okay, we've done it, everyone. We've made it into the zeitgeist of pop culture.
Yeah, and it also, it was when a weekend like this weekend happens, which is so above and beyond anything I could perceive on a global scale, like people know who, I not to be braggy, but 2 weeks ago I was in Abu Dhabi. I was as far away from my home as I've ever been, and I walk into a mall and there's a Miles Morales display. I'm like, he beat me to this is as
how'd you beat me here?
As far away from home as I possibly can be, and there's my boy. And I was so excited about it, and it just reminded me how much things have changed and shifted, and I am so grateful that I get to experience that all.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I wanted to round out our conversation by asking you a question that materialized while I was reading one of my favorite, how to make it in the industry guides, which is Writers on Comic Script Writing, volumes 1 and 2. I don't know if you remember this book at all or not, but this was from 1994. And during this, you're actually here on the cover too. I don't know if you can see that there, but it says in here that hold on, let me start that over. So it says in here that the way you go about your day-to-day writing process is that you mentioned how you like to go on bike rides and ideas just kind of pop into your heads while writing. And you also mentioned that a lot of times what you'll do is you'll do your normal family stuff during the day and in the evening. And then you'll basically from like 9 p.m. until 7 a.m. you'll do a lot of your writing. Well, first of all, is that the case still today? And if not, how has your process changed since back there, in 1994?
I was talking to you from Cleveland back then, where I could get more biking done outside. Portland has a larger, rainier season, but like I was on my bike with my kids last night. If I can bike, I'm biking. There's a stationary one right there in case of emergencies. And so yeah, it is a big part of it. What I do now, I know a little bit more now. There's a wonderful book by John Cleese called On Creativity, which I highly recommend. It's a very short book, but it gets to how it leans into the idea that adults have a hard time being truly creative because adulting is the opposite of creativity. Like, oh, I have responsibilities, I have bills to pay, I have things that need to be done, and I have to think of those things. Where creativity is whimsy and letting go of all of that. And what's the silliest thing I can think of? What's the funniest thing I can think of? And it's harder for an adult to get there. So cardiovascular, bike rides, not thinking about the thing you're thinking about is the best thing you could do to think about it. Like, all right, you know what the problem is. It will solve itself. Go do laundry. Go do Legos. Go on a long bike ride. Listen to your family talk until there's no more words. Like let them go. And all of those things. It brings it on. And even when I feel that, shit, it's not coming, I even get excited about that because it always comes right after that. And as we were talking about failure early in the podcast, I get excited about failure because the good thing always happens right after it. Always happens right after failure. Whereas when something fails, I go, "Oh, good," because here comes the good thing. And I'm wired differently now because of it. So I've learned that what I'm doing with the bike rides and the cardiovascular and letting it all go is that I'm literally reaching for my creativity and letting it have its space to do its thing. But I didn't have the words or the tools to understand that at the time. Also, just some of it's my wiring. I'm wired. I have a high amount of anxiety. Again, words I didn't know back in 1994, but now I know that some of those 9-hour bike rides were an anxiety attack for sure.
Yeah.
But at least I look good at the end of it. At least I was all,
Miles says that in Across the Spider-Verse. He says, I know that men of your generation weren't always aware of their mental health. And I laughed so hard at that part of the movie.
Well, that's what you have there is an enormous amount of men of my age involved with the creation of that movie. Yeah. Thinking the same plot. So, yeah.
Well, you know what's funny
I also love how big of a laugh that gets in the movie. Yeah. I've seen it twice and it gets a huge laugh. And boy, that's one of those, everyone knows what we're talking about here. Yeah. I can't tell if it's a post-pandemic laugh, but it's whatever it is that brought people closer to their mental health is good.
Sure. Well, and you mentioned there that part of the things that you do just to kind of let that mind flow, and I'm sure this is part of your day-to-day, is that you listen to your family, to your friends, whomever. And you actually mentioned that here, even in 1994, that the best way to go about dialogue and scripts, because you're known for your dialogue in your books. That's one of your kind of your cornerstone tentpole of your arsenal. And you believe that the best way to create compelling characters is to make them listen to each other rather than creating dialogue for them just to further the plot. And I think that's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard from a creator about storytelling. And I believe that even people in real life should take that lesson as well.
Yeah, I think I learned it from Richard Price as an author that I really, really admire. He wrote some of my favorite screenplays and some of my favorite books, including The Wanderers. And Clockers is an amazing book if anyone gets a chance to read it. And that's a very well observed, that's all observed behavior. It's like he did the research and so I immediately looked into how did you achieve this level of craft? I will apply that to comics, even though I'm not. And then I was getting what I wanted. I'm believing everything I'm writing. I feel better about everything I'm doing. And also it's fun. It's fun to ask people outside of your perspective, how you feel about this. What are your and people love to share. I have no one's ever said none of your business. Everyone always is desperate to share their truth or perspective of things. And then you realize, what a gift that is. I have a job where I can literally walk up to anybody and say, hey, can I ask you a question about you? And them knowing that you're using it for good or at least trying to. And so it's a great way to interact with people. It's amazing. Yeah. It's sometimes people get very lost in like wanting to be like quote unquote successful. And then they're like, okay, well, like Super Mario Brothers is #1 at the box office. I'll create something just like that. And like, well, no, that's very specific. Like you go make your specific thing and wait 30 years and see what happens. That's what you have to do.
Well, I feel like movies, television, comic books even are very reactionary at certain points. Sometimes they learn the wrong lessons. And like you said, you have to just create your own, whatever your truth is, put that into your work rather than trying, like you said, to be successful.
Yeah. Or be the flavor that everyone's looking for in the moment. Those flavors change so quickly. In the time I've been in comics, they've changed dozens of times. And don't worry about it. Just do your work. I've had work come out in the moment and no one gave a shit. And then 10 years later, everyone was nice about it. And I've had work come out that was quite the thing in the moment and no one ever talks about it. Like, so you don't know what the journey of your work is beyond. It's not just the release of it. It's not just putting out in the world. It's what happens next. And it could happen at any time. So I say that to a lot of creators as well. Even younger creators writing now, I can see like, I'm in some of these discords and stuff. You can see there's a lot of anxiety, but will it happen for me? Will it happen for me? And I'm like, it may be happening for you right now. Just do your work, don't worry about it, So it's you can get lost in the weeds and you don't need to.
I can't remember exactly who the creator was that said this, but I think one of the most valuable pieces of advice I've ever heard is that you can either do the thing that you love doing and maybe be successful, or maybe not, or you can not do the thing that you love doing because you're afraid and definitely not be successful. One of those two, you can either do it and maybe, or not do it and definitely not.
Yeah. And as we get older, and I've talked to a lot of creators from a lot of different walks of life, no one has ever said, I'm really glad I did the fearful thing.
Yeah.
No one ever patted themselves on the back for buckling to the marketplace or something. It's always the thing they did that was a bit of a chance. So yeah.
Well, Brian, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here on the Oblivion Bar podcast. I feel very grateful that I was able to sit down with you today. And I just wanted to ask you, as we're finalizing the conversation here, is there anything that you want to mention to listeners before we head out today at all?
Well, I hope those of you doing your laundry while you're listening to this or in your car, I hope if my whole goal is not only for you to maybe pick up one of our books, but my biggest goal is for you to maybe sit down and maybe write something or draw something that you want to write or draw. Do it. It feels great. It feels awesome. Even if you're writing and drawing your fears or anxiety, getting them out of you for a minute and putting them somewhere else, it can feel great. So try it. See if anything I'm saying or that we've talked about today feels like, this is making me feel something, then go create something. Go write or draw something, even if it's a spider sona. Just see how it feels for yourself and see if you don't feel more connected to humanity and stuff like that. So that's my thing. And also buy our books. The movies are great and video games are great, but oh boy, there are so many great comics and graphic novels from so many different walks of life happening right now. We are in a almost constant state of golden age of creativity going on.
It's a great time to be a comic fan.
It is both mainstream and independent, whatever that means at this point. But again, I've just gotten to travel the world a little bit and felt that deep connection that these stories can bring to each other. And so go buy some books, go to a comic store and buy something that you never bought before. Like go find, like if you like James Tinian's Batman, go buy a James Tinian creator own. Go buy Blue Book by him and my buddy Mike Oming. See if that doesn't go, I didn't maybe it'll open the door to whole kinds of new reading and experiences for you. I'm amazed still that comics are still such a potent way for people to really engage on story. I'm so amazed and delighted that this medium thrives and survives, and no matter what technology is built, it's still as I said in Fortune and Glory, it's still the oldest way man has meant to communicate with each other and the most future forward at the exact same time. And that's a brilliant place to be. So go to a comic store, have some fun.
I think it was Douglas Wolk too that said that comics has always been and will always be on the brink of total destruction, but also be the most popular that it's ever been before this time that you're talking.
Damn straight. Well said, Douglas. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, Brian, also really quick, how can listeners follow you? Yeah, obviously Substack, Twitter, all the things.
Oh, Jinxworld. Just hit Jinxworld and it takes you right to the Substack. You can subscribe for free or get behind the paywall. Either way, it's good with me. And darkhorse.com. And I'm on Instagram, on Blue Sky, and whatever social media pops up that isn't a garbage fire. I will be there. But Instagram seems to be where everyone's really celebrating Spider-Verse with us, and it's been quite wonderful. So come and say hi.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again, Brian, and we'll see you soon.
All right.